Loren's hand was still wet from wiping chocolate off Shai's face when she caught it. A flash on the screen. A name she hadn't seen in years. Not a notification, not a text, just a draft. Hidden in plain sight like it wasn't meant to be sent. But it was meant to be read. This was supposed to be the perfect night. Their first Hanukkah Christmas hybrid as a family of 5. The menorah glowed. The tree shimmered. Loren had matching pajamas for the boys, latkes warming in the oven, and Alexei pacing around like nothing was wrong. Until he plugged in his phone near the kitchen counter. Unlocked. Left. Unattended. Welcome to TLC Drama Live. I'm Sabrina. If you're not already subscribed, now's the time. Because what's coming is uncomfortable, emotional, and exactly why this moment matters. Comment below if you've ever seen someone crack under pressure while pretending to celebrate. Loren wasn't snooping. That's important. She wasn't looking for something. She was just setting the timer on the oven when she noticed the screen hadn't dimmed. And there it was. A message thread. Not new. Scrolled halfway down. No recent replies. But one draft still unsent. A name from Alexei's past. Israeli. Female. Familiar. The kids were still giggling. Asher was climbing the couch. Shai asked for more cookies. Loren blinked. Her heart didn't race. It froze. The kind of pause that feels like hours but lasts seconds. She picked up the phone without thinking. No code needed. Open screen. The message wasn't vulgar. It wasn't romantic. It was logistical. A flight inquiry. Dates. Price estimate. A note at the bottom. Maybe I can figure something out after the holidays. When someone hides their panic in polite language, it's not the words that hurt. It's the timing. The energy shifted. Loren put the phone down like it was about to burn her. Alexei walked back in, humming. She forced a smile. No confrontation. Not yet. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. Because before anything else, she had to know one thing. Was this real? Or was this a setup waiting to explode on camera? Loren didn't scream. She didn't storm out. That's not how she breaks. Her silence wasn't calm. It was calculation. She was filing away every detail. The time the draft was last edited. The airport codes in the search bar. The way Alexei acted like he had nothing to hide because he never hit send. But why draft something if you had nothing to say? The content wasn't explosive. No flirting, no I miss you, no hotel reservations. But that's what made it worse. It was a plan. Travel dates, airport searches, and enough vagueness to give him plausible deniability. That kind of message isn't about words. It's about intent. And it was sitting there, unsent, like it was waiting for the right lie to pair it with. This wasn't the first time Loren felt blindsided. But something about this moment sliced deeper. Because they were the stable couple. The ones who made it work. The rare 90-day pair that didn't unravel under pressure. TLC had practically branded them as proof that the process could succeed. Cute kids. Shared culture. A built-in fan base who rooted for their parenting over their drama. But that label, stable, isn't a shield. It's a trap. When you're the example, cracks aren't allowed. Which means when something breaks, it breaks quietly. Behind camera-ready smiles. Loren has always carried more of the emotional weight. Her postpartum journey wasn't just a plotline. It was real. Public. Raw. She let viewers in. She let them watch her heal. And that made her more vulnerable than most. So when trust slips, it doesn't fall. It shatters. The danger isn't in what's said, it's in what's left half-written. There's a difference between privacy and secrecy. Everyone deserves space. But a secret, especially one that starts with an X and ends with a search for flights, shifts the whole equation. It's not cheating. It's not innocent. It's worse. It's ambiguous. And Alexei thrives in ambiguity. The less he explains, the more he controls the story. And now, Loren had to decide whether she was protecting her marriage or just protecting its image. Loren didn't cry right away. She folded a napkin. She adjusted a toy on the floor. She whispered something to Shai. Everything looked normal from the outside, but her face said it all. Not rage, Not heartbreak. Disbelief. Like her body was present, but her mind hadn't caught up yet. She was spinning inside her own skin. She had been here before, emotionally stretched, carrying too much with too little help. But this moment hit different. Not because it was bigger, because it came dressed as something small. A text that wasn't sent. A search that wasn't deleted. A family night that was supposed to be peaceful. That contrast sent her reeling. She walked into the hallway. Quiet. Then, she turned her phone on herself. She didn't go live to expose anyone. She went live to stay grounded. Sometimes when you're spiraling, the only thing that makes you feel real is a camera. And for Loren, cameras have always been part of her life. She met Alexei on reality TV. She built her brand on transparency. In that moment, live streaming wasn't a performance. It was survival. She didn't say much, just a few choked sentences. One of them stayed with everyone. I don't know who this man is anymore. Some confessions aren't planned. They're pulled out when silence becomes too loud. She was still holding the menorah when she said it. Not for effect. She had been placing it back on the table when she broke. That image, flickering candles in one hand, phone in the other, wasn't staged. But it told the story better than words. A mother, mid-celebration, trying to hold something sacred while something personal was falling apart. That's when production moved. It's not clear who called who. But within the hour, TLC staff was on the way. The holiday special was already in motion. Cameras were supposed to arrive for B-roll of the kids opening gifts, maybe some confessional-style check-ins. Instead, they were walking into a crisis. And none of them knew if Loren would even let them film. The knock wasn't loud. It never is when cameras arrive during a family emergency. TLC didn't barge in. They eased in, gear light, voices lower than usual. The crew had done this before. Arrive during chaos, record around the edges, wait for the breakdown. But this one felt different. There were kids in pajamas. A menorah still burning. A mother trying not to shake. Holiday specials aren't about raw moments. They're about wrapping dysfunction in glitter. Cute edits. Cozy chaos. A little conflict for flavor, but nothing that lingers. That's what viewers expect when they tune in on Christmas Eve. Not a live breakdown. Not a potential cheating scandal involving the network's most functional couple. But TLC knows what sells. A meltdown on a holiday episode? That's gold. The stakes are higher, the emotions sharper, the reactions more explosive. Producers don't ask for these moments, but they're never going to ignore them either. Loren didn't push back. She didn't ask them to leave. But she didn't welcome them either. She nodded once, then stepped away. Her kids were still laughing in the other room. She didn't want them to hear what was coming. Alexei entered quietly, hoodie half-zipped, expression unreadable. He looked at the crew, then at Loren. Then at the phone she held in her hand. He knew. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask what she saw. He said one word. What? Not what do you mean, not what happened. Just what? That's when Loren finally broke eye contact. And Alexei, sensing he was on camera, straightened up and said the phrase that would echo for days. I didn't do anything. A calm denial can sting more than a loud confession when the silence between words feels rehearsed. No explanation, no outrage, just the calm of someone who either believed their lie or didn't think it counted as one. The kids peeked into the room. Curious, confused. Their mom looked pale. Their dad looked distant. No one was yelling. That made it scarier. What they saw wasn't violence. It was something harder to explain. A trust fracture their parents pretended they wouldn't notice. But kids notice everything. And what they carry from this night might last longer than the footage ever will. By morning, it wasn't just a family problem. It was public. Screenshots circulated from Loren's livestream, blurry but real. Blogs picked up the quote. Subreddits lit up with theories. Fans split fast, some furious, some skeptical, all loud. The couple who built their image on real love was now the center of a fight about what real love even means. Half the internet wanted receipts. They demanded screen grabs, timestamps, proof of Alexei's messages, others called for restraint, accusing people of jumping to conclusions. But this wasn't about strangers choosing sides. It was about viewers seeing themselves. People projected their own pain onto Loren's face, their own trust issues onto Alexei's silence. When someone looks calm during chaos, it doesn't always mean they're innocent. Sometimes they've just practiced staying unreadable. The cheating accusation became the wrong conversation because no one caught him in bed. No one even saw a sent message. But it wasn't about sex. It was about secrecy. When someone you love makes plans without you, and with someone you didn't know was still in their orbit, that's a betrayal you feel in your gut, not your inbox. Trust isn't always broken by what someone does. Sometimes it breaks when they act like they don't owe you the truth. Loren knew the power of words. She used hers carefully, even during the live stream. No wild claims. No slander. That restraint confused people, made it harder to tell if this was a meltdown or a message. But she wasn't trying to convince the public. She was trying to understand the man she'd built a life with. The harder truth? This wasn't a one-time moment. It pointed to a pattern. Alexei has always been guarded, private. He keeps his world small and doesn't share until he's cornered. Some people call that boundaries, others call it control. And now, people were asking, where's the line between healthy privacy and emotional hiding? Because if Loren couldn't reach him in this moment, who else had been locked out? Alexei didn't speak much, and that silence made things worse. But silence, for him, wasn't new. It's how he's always handled pressure, by tightening up, not opening up. He came into this country with a different weight on his back. Immigration wasn't a subplot for Alexei, it was the foundation of everything. Paperwork, sponsorship, proving his value in a system that makes you earn belonging every single day. He didn't come from wealth or comfort. He came from a place where survival meant keeping things inside. When he met Loren, things shifted. She gave him a platform, a passport, a public life. But with visibility came expectations. He wasn't just a husband, he became a brand. A father, a provider, a husband to someone who made vulnerability part of her identity. Loren shared everything, every emotion, every fear, every frustration. And Alexei didn't. That's not necessarily malicious. It's cultural. It's personal. It's self-protection. But it's also isolating. Because when someone you love keeps shutting down, you stop asking questions. You start making assumptions. Alexei's denial wasn't explosive. It was muted. Almost clinical. I didn't do anything. It sounded like the truth, but it didn't feel like the truth. Not because of what he said, but because of everything he didn't say. Silence can protect you, but it can also trap you. Especially when it hides what someone else needs to heal. He may not have cheated. He may not have boarded a flight. But why didn't he tell Loren he was in contact with his ex at all? Why didn't he explain the flight search the moment she saw it? Why wait until she was unraveling on a live stream to say anything? That's what cracked the trust. Not the message. The omission. Alexei isn't a villain. He's not a cartoon cheater. He's a man who's carried stress for years, who built a wall around himself so tight he forgot who was on the other side. But when trust is already fragile, transparency isn't a luxury. It's survival. And now, Loren had to ask the question she never thought she'd be asking in year 8 of their marriage. If Alexei won't open up when it matters, is he even capable of being fully present? Or has he always been halfway out the door, just quietly enough that no one noticed? The kids didn't say a word. They didn't cry. They didn't ask questions. But that silence wasn't peace, it was pause. That quiet tension kids carry when they know something's off, but no one will name it. Loren saw it, and it broke her more than the phone did. Shai had crawled into her lap without saying why. Asher clutched the toy Alexei had given him earlier and kept looking at the hallway like someone forgot to close a door. Kids don't need full context to feel instability. They sense the shift in tone, in glances, in breath patterns. And when one parent goes blank and the other starts blinking too fast, they file it somewhere permanent. That's the part Loren couldn't fix. She tried to keep the night going, kept her voice soft, read a book aloud, smiled through her own spinning thoughts. But in the back of her mind, the question never stopped repeating, what did they see, and what will they remember? There's a unique kind of pain that hits when your instinct to protect your kids clashes with your instinct to protect yourself. Loren didn't want them growing up in chaos. But she also didn't want to teach them that silence is strength. That's the lie too many mothers absorb and pass down. You can't model stability by hiding the cracks. You only teach your children how to pretend. She didn't film the rest of the night. TLC had what they needed. She asked the crew to stop rolling after a few neutral shots. No drama, no scene. Just a mother holding her babies on the couch, staring at lights she couldn't feel anymore. Then, off camera, she made a choice. No post, no statement, no call to Alexei's family. She went quiet in a different way. Not to suppress it, to reflect. To figure out what came next, not just as a wife, but as a mother. And if she had to pick one identity to prioritize moving forward, she already knew which one it would be. The only question was whether she could make that shift without shattering the whole image they'd spent years building. Not everything the internet assumed turned out to be true. As the noise settled, some viewers started asking better questions. Not louder ones, sharper ones. Was there ever a confirmed booking? No. Did Loren ever say Alexei cheated? Also no. The livestream was raw, emotional, and vague for a reason. She never claimed a full betrayal. She described confusion, distance, and a version of the man she no longer recognized. The draft message to his ex wasn't romantic, the flight search wasn't attached to a transaction, and the livestream didn't name the woman directly. So what was confirmed? A pattern. A silence. A redirection. And that's the problem. Denial isn't always a lie. Sometimes it's an incomplete truth. Alexei kept repeating one thing, I didn't do anything. And in the most literal sense, maybe he didn't. But that defense only works when doing nothing doesn't carry consequences. And in this case, the damage wasn't in the action. It was in the hiding. A person can tell the truth and still leave out the part that matters most. So why search for flights? Why reach out at all? If there was no intention to follow through, why leave the tab open, the message saved, the entire thing accessible? It wasn't carelessness. It was calculated enough to trigger Loren's instincts, and her instincts have never needed permission to be right. As production continued filming in the days after, both Loren and Alexei tried to put on a united front. They posted photos with the kids. Posed. Smiled, but the timing was suspicious. Too neat, too fast, too clean for something that had clearly fractured the core. Was the reconciliation real? Or was it a patch job for the cameras? That's what fans started wondering. Because the problem wasn't whether they made up. The question was whether either of them had actually dealt with what broke them, or if they were just preserving a version of their life that felt easier to control than to change. Stable couples carry a different kind of risk. When they fall apart, the shock cuts deeper, not because the breakup is messier, but because the illusion was cleaner. Loren and Alexei weren't sold to viewers as fiery or toxic. They were sold as proof. The couple that made it. When cracks appeared, it wasn't just a marriage under stress. It was a brand collapsing under the weight of its own image. Viewers didn't just trust their relationship. They trusted what it represented. Family, growth, healing, balance. And when Loren went live, holding a menorah with tears in her voice, that trust snapped, not just in Alexei, but in the entire narrative that had been carefully packaged over seasons. After the live stream, Loren's words changed. She didn't accuse, she distanced. Her captions grew colder, shorter. Less we, more I. When she spoke on camera, she stayed composed. But her language was sharper. Phrases like rebuilding, respect, and boundaries started to slip in. Not big enough to trigger headlines, but noticeable enough for anyone watching closely. When someone stops using your name in their story, they're already rewriting their ending. Alexei, meanwhile, got quieter. Not just in words, but in posture. In aired clips that followed, he looked distracted. His hands stayed in his pockets. His eyes wandered. He nodded too quickly. Gave answers that sounded rehearsed. It wasn't what he said, it was what his body gave away. Discomfort. Detachment. Like he was present out of obligation, not belief. And through it all, TLC kept filming. But they edited carefully. No mention of the flight search. No footage of the exact moment Loren found the phone. Nothing from the live stream made it into the final cut. Instead, they focused on safe scenes, family outings, gift exchanges, smiling for the camera. But behind those edits, something was missing. A beat skipped. A breath held. What TLC didn't show wasn't fiction. It was silence. And somewhere in that gap between what aired and what happened, viewers were left to fill in the blanks. The story wasn't over. But it had stopped being theirs to control. There were no fireworks. No tearful reunion, no final blowout, just distance. The kind that creeps in slowly, even when people keep saying they're fine. Loren and Alexei didn't announce a split. They didn't pose for a "we're stronger now" photo either. They just shifted. The holidays passed, the cameras left, the internet moved on, but inside their home something stayed broken. Not beyond repair, but beyond pretending. Because once you feel unsafe in your own relationship, nothing snaps back. Even if forgiveness comes, it doesn't come clean. That's the part no one wants to film. The waiting. The watching. The quiet recalibration of roles. Who makes the coffee, who tucks in the kids, who initiates the next hug, it all changes. Loren hasn't said much publicly since the livestream. Her tone online is softer, but colder. She talks about the boys, about routines, about health. She doesn't say Alexei's name often. She doesn't need to. Alexei's presence is there, but faded. No major absence, no sudden solo appearance, but a slow erosion. Like someone slipping out of the frame, one post at a time. Some endings don't come with closure. They come with clarity. And that clarity doesn't need a statement. It lives in the pauses. In the parts of life that go unposted. No one is calling either of them a villain. Because this wasn't a collapse driven by cruelty. It was a slow withdrawal. A relationship that looked solid because it was quiet, until the quiet started feeling like avoidance. Now viewers are asking what else they missed. What other couples seemed calm, but were cracking behind the scenes? How often does silence get mistaken for strength? And if Loren and Alexei weren't as stable as everyone believed, what does that say about another couple people keep putting on a pedestal?